I don't even know where to start. I've been sitting here staring at this screen for an hour, trying to figure out how to put the last few months of my life into words. My marriage, what I thought was safe, steady, and built on trust, has turned into something out of a nightmare I can't wake up from. I, 35M, have been married to Marissa, 33F, for 8 years. We've known each other since college, fell in love hard, and everyone around us thought we were the golden couple. And honestly, I bought into that image myself. Neighbors would wave and smile when they saw us grilling in the backyard, family would always say how we complemented each other perfectly, and friends used to joke that we should write a book on how to keep the spark alive. From the outside, it looked flawless. But inside, something always felt off. Not in a dramatic way, more like a shadow I couldn't name. Marissa was affectionate, yes, but it often felt rehearsed. Like she knew the right lines to say, the right moments to kiss me on the cheek, the right tone of laugh to let out when I cracked a joke. Sometimes when she looked at me, it was like she was peering through me instead of at me. I'd tell myself I was overthinking, everyone has off days, right? Marriage isn't supposed to be perfect 24/7. Then the spa nights started. Every Thursday, she'd grab her overnight bag, kiss me goodbye, and tell me she was off to meet her sister for a little pampering, massages, facials, all that. She said it helped her relax from the stress of work. At first, I didn't question it. I even encouraged her. I figured, hey, self-care is important. But then she started coming home later and later. Sometimes past midnight, slipping into bed without a word, her skin faintly scented of gardenias. That struck me as odd, because I'd once looked up the spa online to surprise her with a gift card. Their signature oils were lavender, not gardenia. I casually mentioned it, thinking maybe she switched to a different spa. She snapped at me, hard. Not everything is about you, Ethan. God, you're so paranoid sometimes. That shut me down. I hate conflict, and Marissa knew it. She'd twist her tone, make me feel guilty for even raising a question. So I let it go, but deep down, that shadow I'd felt for years started to grow teeth. I wanted so badly to believe my marriage was solid, that the cracks were in my imagination. But something in my gut whispered otherwise. And the gut never lies. After that whole paranoid comment, I tried to push everything out of my head. I told myself, Ethan, you're just overanalyzing. Don't ruin a good thing because of a little insecurity. That worked for maybe a week. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more obvious the cracks became. It wasn't just the spa nights. Marissa started being different. Subtle at first. She'd keep her phone on her at all times. She used to leave it charging on the kitchen counter, notifications popping up from her friends or her mom. Now, she carried it like it was welded to her hand. Shower. Phone on the sink. Folding laundry. Phone in her pocket. I even caught her once falling asleep with it clutched to her chest like a teddy bear. I asked her about it, trying to sound light-hearted. Babe, you planning to marry your phone next? She gave me this sharp look, then forced a laugh. Work's been crazy. You wouldn't understand. That one stung. I work in IT, stress is literally in the job description. But she brushed me off like a child tugging on her sleeve. And here's the thing, every lie she told me was wrapped in just enough truth to make me second-guess myself. Then there were the little inconsistencies. I'd ask her about her sister, how she was doing, what they talked about during these spa nights. Marissa's answers were vague, like she hadn't even bothered to make up a story. Oh, you know, girl stuff. When I pressed for more, she rolled her eyes. Why do you care? You've never cared before. But I did care. I cared because I loved her, because I wanted to be part of her world. And slowly, it felt like she was building another world where I wasn't allowed. One Thursday night, she left for her spa evening, but I noticed something strange. Her overnight bag looked heavier than usual. Not the kind of heavy you'd expect from face masks and a towel. I swear I saw the corner of a black dress poking out. I asked her why she needed so much stuff for a spa. She snapped, "They're running a special, okay? Don't you ever get tired of interrogating me?" And then she slammed the door. That night, I sat in our quiet house, staring at the empty space on the couch where she usually curled up with me. The silence was unbearable. I paced, checked my phone every few minutes, convinced I'd missed a message from her. Nothing. Something in me broke that night. Curiosity, dread, suspicion, it all boiled over. For the first time in our marriage, I thought, what if she's lying to me? What if she's with someone else right now? That thought alone nearly made me sick. But the seed had been planted. And once it's there, it grows. The following Thursday, I made up my mind, I was going to follow her. The decision ate at me all week. I kept telling myself I was being insane. Normal husbands don't tail their wives through the city like some washed-up detective in a cheap movie. But the lies, the dismissals, the way she'd twist everything back on me, it all added up. I needed answers. Even if it destroyed me. Thursday night came, and my heart felt like it was pounding out of my chest before she even left. Marissa floated through the living room in this airy blouse, makeup a little heavier than usual, hair curled. Not exactly spa attire. She noticed me watching her and smirked. "What? Never seen your wife dressed nice before." I forced a laugh, but inside I was screaming. She kissed my cheek, cold, mechanical, and walked out the door with her bag. A minute later, I slipped out too, keys in hand. I kept my headlights low, hanging back far enough that she wouldn't notice. My palms were slick with sweat as I gripped the steering wheel. Every time she turned, I prayed she wouldn't catch a glimpse of me in the rearview. She didn't head toward the suburbs where her sister lived. Instead, she drove straight into the city. My gut twisted tighter with every passing block. No spa in that direction. No sister. Just crowded streets, dim alleys, and a creeping sense of dread. Finally, she slowed down near an old part of town I barely recognized. Crumbling brick buildings, boarded-up shops, graffiti covering cracked windows. Definitely not spa territory. She parked in front of this decaying, nameless structure that looked like it should have been demolished years ago. I pulled over half a block away, killing my engine. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely hear. I watched as she grabbed her bag, glanced around quickly, and slipped through a side door. The second the door shut, a faint light flickered in an upper window. Then another. Then, darkness. I sat there frozen, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. What kind of spa operates out of a condemned building? Why did the lights go out so suddenly? My instinct screamed to follow her inside, but fear held me back. What if she caught me? What if she spun it into me being the villain, the paranoid stalker husband? So I drove home, my head spinning, convincing myself I'd figure it out later. But sleep never came that night. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the tick of the clock, waiting for her to return. She came back after 1 a.m., humming softly as if nothing was wrong, slipping into bed without a care. When I asked how her spa night was, she smiled, too wide, and said, "Amazing. You should really stop doubting me, Ethan. It's exhausting." The next morning, I looked at her and realized I didn't know who I was married to anymore. That's when I decided I had to go back to that building. Alone. In daylight. The next day, I couldn't concentrate on anything. Work emails blurred together, my phone buzzed with calls I ignored, and even coffee tasted like ash in my mouth. My mind kept replaying that image of Marissa disappearing into that decaying brick building. The flicker of lights. The sudden darkness. Her smug smile when she got home. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I told my boss I wasn't feeling well, drove straight into the city, and parked in front of that same street. In daylight, the building looked even worse than it had the night before. Windows were cracked and dusty, the brick walls covered in layers of graffiti, the door splintered and warped. There was no sign, no people around, nothing to indicate it was in use. Still, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The smell hit me first, stale air, mildew, dust. The floorboards creaked under my weight, each step echoing in the cavernous silence. I expected to hear voices, laughter, maybe even muffled music, the things you'd associate with a secret hangout or an affair. Instead, there was nothing. The first room was empty except for broken furniture and a cracked mirror leaning against the wall. A second room had a collapsed ceiling, chunks of plaster scattered like bones across the floor. I walked deeper, my pulse quickening with every step, praying I'd find something, anything, that explained why Marissa came here. But all I found were cobwebs, peeling paint, and dust so thick it puffed up with each step. No footprints. No signs of recent use. No working electricity. I climbed the staircase to the second floor, the wood groaning beneath me. That was when I froze. There, scratched faintly into the peeling paint of the upstairs hallway doorframe, was a symbol. A strange, looping design I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped when I realized I'd seen it before, etched into Marissa's necklace charm she wore sometimes, one she'd claimed was just vintage. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. What the hell was going on? I snapped pictures with my phone, though my hands were shaking so badly they came out blurry. Then I left, heart pounding in my ears, rushing back to my car like I'd been chased. Back home, I tried to do something I'd never thought I'd do. I started digging into property records. It didn't take long, public records are easier to access than most people think. And that's when I nearly dropped my laptop. The building had been condemned years ago. Nobody was legally allowed to occupy it. And here's the kicker, one of the last listed tenants, decades ago, had the same last name as Marissa's maiden name. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred, the pieces rattling in my head but refusing to come together. Why would my wife be sneaking into an abandoned, condemned building tied somehow to her family's past? Why lie about spa nights? Why cover her tracks with that smug smile? I knew I had to confront her. And for the first time in my life, I was terrified of what she might say. That night, I waited for her like a man possessed. My laptop sat open on the dining table, the property record pulled up in black and white, the blurry photos of the scratched symbol glowing on my phone. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Marissa walked in around 9:30, hair perfect, perfume thick in the air, gardenia again. She set her bag down and gave me that look. The one where her lips curled just slightly, like she was already annoyed with me before I even spoke. "Rough day?" she asked, her tone sickly sweet. I cut straight through the small talk. "Where were you last night?" She blinked, then smiled, too calm. "I told you. Spa with my sister. You seriously keeping tabs on me now?" I slid my phone across the table, the photo of the scratched symbol glowing on the screen. "Then explain this. I followed you. You weren't at a spa. You went into that building." For a second, just a second, her face went blank. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. "You followed me? Oh my God, Ethan, do you even hear yourself? Do you realize how insane that sounds? Creeping around after me like some jealous teenager." My voice cracked. "That building is abandoned. Condemned. And it has your maiden name in the records. Don't lie to me anymore, Marissa." She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, eyes narrowing. "You've lost your mind. Seriously. You're going to lecture me about lies while you're stalking me like a psycho? Do you know how humiliating this is? If anyone heard you, they'd think you're crazy." Every word out of her mouth was a blade. She didn't answer a single question. She just flipped it back on me, twisting the knife deeper, making me feel like I was the villain. Finally, I slammed my fist on the table. Just tell me the truth. What were you doing there? She stared at me, unblinking, then smiled. Not the warm kind. The kind that makes your stomach turn. You weren't supposed to follow me, she whispered. The room went silent. I couldn't breathe. Her tone was soft, calm, but there was something in it, something cold and final. Like she already knew how this would end. She stood, grabbed her bag, and walked upstairs without another word. The sound of hangers scraping on the closet rod followed. Then drawers opening and closing. When I finally made it upstairs, her side of the closet was empty. Her perfume bottles were gone. All that remained was a single brass key lying neatly on her pillow. A key engraved with the same looping symbol I'd seen on that building. That night, she didn't come home. And she never did again. I woke up the next morning half expecting to hear the shower running, her voice humming off-key, the clink of her coffee mug against the counter. Instead, the house was dead quiet. Too quiet. At first, I thought maybe she was pulling one of her dramatic stunts, leave overnight, come back with some flimsy excuse, flip it back on me until I was the one apologizing. That was her pattern, disappear emotionally, lie, and then gaslight me until I felt like I'd imagined everything. But when I opened the closet, her side was stripped bare. Clothes, shoes, jewelry, gone. The row of perfume bottles she used to obsess over vanished. Even her damn hair straightener was missing. The only thing she left was that brass key, sitting neatly on the pillow like a sick little gift. The symbol carved into it matched the one I'd seen on the abandoned building. I picked it up, cold and heavy in my palm, and something inside me cracked. It wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was something darker. Something I couldn't explain. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I called her sister, who swore she hadn't seen Marissa in weeks. That hit me like a sledgehammer. All those Thursday nights, all those spa evenings, lies stacked on lies. I barely remember the rest of that day. My chest felt like it was caving in. Anger, grief, and panic all tangled into one suffocating mess. I punched the wall so hard my knuckles split. I sat on the floor of our bedroom, staring at the empty space where her clothes used to hang, and I cried like a child. How do you process something like that? How do you reconcile 8 years of marriage with the possibility that none of it was real? That the woman you built your life with might have been hiding an entire double existence? Friends texted me, asking if I was okay. I lied and said I was sick. How could I tell them the truth? That my wife vanished overnight, leaving nothing but a key to a condemned building and more questions than I'll ever be able to answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Every shadow in the corner looked like her standing there, watching me with that smug little smile. The key burned in my hand, heavy and wrong, like it didn't just unlock a door, it unlocked the truth I wasn't ready to face. For the first time, I admitted it to myself, I wasn't just dealing with an affair. This was something else entirely. And I had no idea how deep it went. Shock kept me numb for a few days. I went through the motions, work, eat, sleep, but everything felt hollow. I'd wake up in the middle of the night reaching across the bed only to find cold sheets. Every time, that brass key sat on the nightstand, taunting me. But grief has a way of turning into something sharper. I couldn't just sit in that empty house, replaying her lies over and over. I needed answers. Even if they ripped me apart. So I started digging. First, her phone records. I wasn't proud of it, but I logged into our joint account. The Thursday nights stood out like blood on snow, dozens of calls to numbers I didn't recognize, texts at odd hours. Most were to prepaid burners, dead ends. But a few connected to businesses that didn't exist anymore, their numbers still floating in the system like ghosts. Next, I went back to the building. Not at night this time, I wasn't stupid, but during the day, when the city noise dulled my nerves. I walked around the block, taking pictures of every angle, every mark on the brick. That strange looping symbol appeared more than once, carved into the wood near the back door, scratched into the rusting metal of a fire escape. Something about it gnawed at me. I spent hours online, searching symbols, cult markings, even old graffiti tags. Nothing matched perfectly. But one forum thread caught my attention, an old discussion about secret societies and closed circles that used variations of looping keys as their insignia. My stomach dropped when I saw one of the examples. Not identical, but close enough to make my skin crawl. That's when I remembered the necklace Marissa used to wear. She told me it was just vintage, a thrift store find. But when I zoomed in on old photos, the pendant carried the same looping design. She'd been wearing that symbol right under my nose for years. The worst part? When I asked her about it once, she'd rolled her eyes and said, "It's just a pretty design, Ethan. Not everything has to mean something." That was her specialty: dismiss, deflect, degrade. She'd make me feel stupid for even noticing. But now, it all added up. Every lie. Every Thursday. Every gardenia-soaked night. And that damned key. I couldn't stop myself anymore. I knew where it belonged. And I knew I had to go back. I don't know what I expected when I grabbed the brass key off my nightstand and drove back into the city. Closure. Proof I wasn't insane. Maybe even some twisted hope that Marissa would be there, waiting with one of her sharp smiles and a new set of lies. It was late evening when I pulled up. The streets were mostly empty, the last of the sunlight bleeding out behind the skyline. The building loomed ahead, every cracked window and jagged edge making me feel like I was walking into the mouth of something alive. The key felt heavier than it should have, burning in my palm. The symbol carved into it gleamed faintly, catching the last rays of light. I walked around the side entrance, the same one I'd seen her slip through that night. My hands shook as I pushed the warped door. It groaned open with that same miserable creak, the air inside thick with dust and mildew. The first rooms were exactly as I remembered, empty, broken, forgotten. But now I searched with intent. Every door I tried was either rotted through or rusted shut. Until I reached the far end of the hall on the first floor. There was a heavy iron door, different from the others. Less decay, more deliberate. And etched right into its surface was the same looping symbol. My chest tightened. My pulse thundered in my ears. This was it. I slid the key into the lock, half expecting it to jam. Instead, it turned smoothly, too smoothly for a place that had supposedly been abandoned for years. A cold shiver ran down my spine. The door creaked open to reveal a staircase leading down. Basements don't scare me, but that one did. The air seeping out was colder, almost damp. And the smell, faint but undeniable, gardenias. Marissa's scent. I nearly turned and ran right then. Every instinct screamed that this was the point of no return. But I gripped the key tighter, my knuckles white, and forced myself down the steps one at a time. At the bottom, a narrow hallway stretched ahead, dimly lit by a single bulb that buzzed faintly. Which made no sense, the building had no power. Dust clung to the walls, but the floor showed footprints. Fresh ones. Leading deeper inside. My heart dropped into my stomach. Marissa had been here. And maybe she still was. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to turn back, but I forced myself forward, one slow step at a time. The hallway was narrow, the kind that makes you feel like the walls are closing in. My phone flashlight cut through the gloom, the beam shaking in my trembling hand. The footprints led me to a heavy wooden door at the end. Unlike the rest of the basement, this door wasn't rotted or broken, it looked maintained. Polished, even. A fresh brass handle gleamed under my light. I swallowed hard, pressed my ear against it. Silence. No movement, no voices, nothing. When I finally pushed it open, my stomach lurched. The room inside wasn't empty. It was set up like a shrine, or a meeting place. A round table stood in the center, surrounded by mismatched chairs. On the table lay a single white rose, fresh, its petals still damp. Next to it sat a small leather-bound book. The smell of gardenias hung thick in the air, clinging to the walls. My hands shook as I picked up the book. It wasn't a diary, not exactly, but it was filled with notes, strange symbols, dates, and names I didn't recognize. Some of the pages had the same looping design as the key etched in the margins. Others looked like lists. One page in particular made my blood run cold. Thursday, entry confirmed. No interference. Ethan still suspects nothing. My name. Written in her handwriting. I dropped the book like it burned me, stumbling back. My mind reeled. Marissa hadn't just lied about spa nights. She'd been coming here, writing about me, recording how oblivious I was. On the far wall, scratched deep into the plaster, was that same looping symbol again. But this time, it was larger, almost a mural. And beneath it hung something that froze me to the spot. Marissa's necklace. The one she always claimed was just vintage. She'd hung it there deliberately, like a badge, like proof. I backed out of the room, the air heavy, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might tear out of my chest. I didn't know what I'd stumbled into, but one thing was clear, this wasn't just an affair. It was bigger, darker, and I was way over my head. As I reached the stairs, I thought I heard something, a soft hum, faint, almost like someone singing from somewhere deeper in the basement. A tune I knew. Marissa's. I didn't wait to find out. I ran. I don't even remember how I made it home that night. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel, my pulse a constant roar in my ears. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, convinced headlights were following me, convinced she, or they, whoever they were right behind me. When I finally stumbled into the house, I locked every door, every window, even shoved a chair under the front handle like some B-movie cliché. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That book, those notes, the necklace, they weren't just evidence of betrayal. They were proof that Marissa had been documenting me. Like I was some kind of project. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the lights on, clutching that brass key like it could protect me. Every creak of the house made me jump. At one point, I swore I smelled gardenias, faint, drifting through the vents. I tore through the place, checking every room, every closet. Nothing. But the smell lingered. The next morning, I tried to be rational. I told myself, maybe it's all in your head. Maybe the building isn't what you think. Maybe Marissa just got caught up in some weird hobby, some group. But then I remembered the page with my name, the words, Ethan still suspects nothing. That wasn't a hobby. That was surveillance. I considered going to the police, but what would I even say? My wife disappeared, left me a key to a condemned building, and I found her necklace hanging under a creepy symbol. They'd think I was insane. Hell, maybe I was. For days, paranoia ate me alive. I started noticing little things, the sound of footsteps outside at night, cars idling too long near the house, my phone battery draining faster than normal. Was I being watched? Was this the price of following her when she told me not to? And through it all, I couldn't shake her words, you weren't supposed to follow me. It didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a rule I'd broken. And now, I was paying for it. By the end of that week, I wasn't the same man anymore. I was living like a fugitive inside my own house. Curtains drawn at all times. Doors bolted. The TV left on low just to drown out the silence. I even moved a chair into the bedroom so I could sleep sitting up, brass key in my fist like some kind of talisman. Every night, the smell of gardenias drifted back. Sometimes faint, sometimes strong enough to make my stomach turn. I tore apart the vents, ripped through the closets, even checked the crawlspace with a flashlight. Nothing. No one. Just that smell, taunting me, reminding me she'd been here, or that she still was. I kept replaying our last conversation in my head, the way she smiled and whispered, "You weren't supposed to follow me." It didn't feel like anger. It felt like certainty. Like she knew exactly what would happen once I broke her rule. I started preparing, because I knew, deep down, that she was coming back. Not as the woman I married, but as something else. I bought locks. Cameras. Even a cheap motion sensor system I set up around the house. My friends noticed I wasn't myself, but when they asked, I just said I was stressed from work. How could I explain the truth? That my wife had vanished into thin air, leaving behind symbols, keys, and a trail that led to a room that shouldn't exist. The worst moment came 3 nights ago. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. sharp. The house was silent, but when I sat up, I saw it. On the bedroom door. A faint mark. A looping design. Her symbol. I ran to it, heart pounding, and traced it with my fingertip. It wasn't drawn. It wasn't carved. It was smeared. Gardenia oil. That was the moment I realized I wasn't waiting for her return anymore. She was already here. I don't know if this will even make sense to anyone reading. Hell, I don't know if posting this is smart. But I need to get it out before it eats me alive. It's been almost 3 weeks since Marissa disappeared. I've stopped calling her phone. I've stopped expecting answers. All I have left are the pieces she left behind, a key that opens doors I wish I'd never seen, a necklace that wasn't just vintage, and a trail of lies so deep it makes me wonder if I ever knew her at all. I think back on our 8 years together, the laughter, the late-night drives, the shared dreams. Were they real, or just part of the act? Was I a husband, or a subject she was assigned to watch? Every day, I wrestle with the urge to go back to that building. To dig deeper, to find out what that basement really was, who those names in the book belonged to, what role my wife played in all of it. But another part of me knows, if I open that door again, I might not come back. So for now, I've chosen survival. I moved out of our house last week. I left everything behind, the furniture, the photos, even the bed we shared. The symbol on the door was the final straw. I couldn't breathe in that place anymore. Now I sleep in a 1-bedroom rental with deadbolts on every door and a baseball bat next to my bed. The cameras are still running at the old house, though. And sometimes I see her. Just for a second. A shadow near the porch. A flicker by the window. Always gone by the time I blink. Maybe it's paranoia. Maybe I've lost my mind. Or maybe she's still watching, still waiting. If you're reading this and something feels off in your relationship, don't ignore it. Don't let yourself be gaslit into believing you're crazy. Listen to your gut. If the pieces don't add up, there's a reason. And whatever you do, if she looks you in the eye and says, "You weren't supposed to follow me," don't.